So far, so good. But we haven't updated our text feedback yet, and let's think about what some expected behavior here is. If you hit the up button, and we know the relays have to be on for 2 seconds while the motor is doing something, we want to prevent the user from then hitting the down button real quick. We also don't want them to like spam the button over and over again. There's a lot of ways that maybe this motor could be very finicky in the way it receives its commands, and we don't want the user to potentially overload it with information. For all of these, whether you hit the up button or the down button or the stop button, while that relay is on for those 2 seconds, I kind of want to disable the ability to hit that up and down again. Because I don't want them to hit it up and down again. I want them to just let it do the thing. So let's add that into this. When they hit up or down or stop, we are going to disable the buttons. We're going to make them go into like a half visible state that tells us, hey, it still exists, but you can no longer interact with it. That's hands off. Okay, well, you can hopefully guess what I am going at here. We're going to make this thing happen 3 different times. If you're gonna do something twice, you're going to
make it a function.
No, you're gonna boil chicken water. That's the answer we're looking for. Just throw that chicken in there. You throw a chicken in live into the boiling water. That's how it works. There it is. Make it a function. Let's create a function. We're gonna call this function disable up and down button for X seconds. Right? That's what we're going to do. And we know that we're going to recall this function in all 3 of the event handlers that we just made. So even though we haven't defined the function yet, let's just throw it in there. I'm going to add this function into my stop button. It's going to take place right at the top of it. As soon as they press the button on, I'm going to disable them. Let's copy that block. We'll paste it up here. Oops, wrong one. I'll just grab it from here again. Same idea. When they press the button down, it's going to disable them. And when they press the button up, it's going to disable them. Anytime they do anything with these buttons, we're going to run that function, whatever it is that function is, which we will define right now. Make a little space for myself there. Okay, so what is the function going to be? We need to disable things. We got a new block. As I mentioned, a new block that we will be using for this, very similar to the legend block that we used earlier. I bet you, you know what, Patrick, you missed the opportunity for any legend puns previously.
Legend.
That's just the name of a movie. That's not a pun. I don't know if you know how puns work. You can't just say the word. It's got to like be in context to something else at the same time.
Will Smith in I Am Legend.
I don't think you know how any of this.
Let me check ChatGPT.
Okay. Rather than change the legend, we're changing the .is disabled state of these controls. So I'm going to go to my control, and what are we going to do? We're going to set the button ups is disabled, set control button ups visual is disabled property. We're going to set it to true, because it will be disabled. Normally, it is not disabled, so the is disabled would be false. When it is disabled, it is true. And a little bit opposite of the way you might instinctively think about that. So we're going to set button up disabled to true. I'll duplicate that and say button down disabled is also true. We're disabling both of those. And then 2 seconds later, we want to make them visible again. So we'll grab our little timer. Same thing we did before. Just using an automatic call after. So after how much time, we're going to use that variable that we used for everything to define how long something will be, our time variable. After that amount of time, what are we going to do? We're just going to fix those. So we're going to say button up is disabled will be false. Button down disabled will be false as well. And you know what? Let's debug for the sake of debugging. So I'm going to go grab a debug. And what do I want to say? I want to say up and down buttons have been disabled for X seconds. Ooh, but that X seconds might change. That X seconds is a variable. So I can't just do this as one string. I need to Cronenberg my abomination.
That's right. Brundlefly.
Yes. We're going to concatenate this information. So I'm going to grab a string block, and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to have 3 items in here because I want one of them to be the time, and the other ones will be strings that describe it. So I'll say the up and down buttons will be disabled for, I'll add a space, give myself a little bit of room, for time, amount of time. And then I'll add the word seconds at the end of it. I put a little space before the word seconds too, so that it would show up. That way, again, no matter what we end up choosing the length of time to be, this debug will be accurate as well. Just a little thing we can add to make sure that everything is always accurate for whatever it is we're going to do. Now, I did not add a debug yet to any of these guys, and I chose not to do that for a reason. Because we're going to be updating the UCI text string with probably the same information that we're going to put in the debug. So rather than make it a debug itself, maybe we can do both of those at the same time. That would save ourselves a little bit of work. Let's figure out what that's going to be. Let's make a simple function that is going to do the same thing for everything. So we'll create a function. This is going to update the text on the UCI, and it's also going to work as our debug. So we'll call this update text and debug. And we know that it will have slightly different information based on which of those 3 event handlers was hit. So we're going to use an
Function.
argument. Argument. We're going to use an argument.
I object.
Thank you. We're going to use an argument. Add an argument to it so that we can pass different information into it based on where it was triggered from, right? So let's call this the activity. What is the actual activity that is passing into this? The lines of this particular function are very simple. We're going to update the text, and we're going to debug the activity. So I will set the control of our UCI feedback, set its string, that is the text field that we placed on the UCI. We're going to set it to whatever this activity information is that passes into our function. We're going to define that when we recall the function. Anytime we recall it, we'll pass that information through as our argument, our function inputs. And then we're also going to debug print that very same information, right? Grab that activity and debug it. That way, rather than input these 2 blocks every single time we have the event handler, we can just run the one function once, and we don't need to constantly burden ourselves with too many blocks. We can consolidate this into a single place and mix it again, one place we have to go if we ever want to update it slightly differently. One other thing to think about, would you like to make a cranberries reference really quickly, Patrick?
Oh, no.
No?
Touch. What is it?
Yes. just the
Damn it! Yes. Ask me again.
Patrick, would you like to make a cranberries reference?
Would you have to let it linger?
Do you have to let it linger? Very
Would
close.
you?
Do you have to let it linger? That's the right answer, actually. That's what I was looking for. I thought you might go with zombie. But do you have to let it linger is the right answer. Do we have to let this information linger on the UCI?
Do you have to? Do you have to?
Yeah, thank
Do
you.
you have to let it linger?
I regret everything I've ever asked you to do. We are going to put the information on the UCI that says the shades are going up and the shades are going down. I don't want that to stay up there forever. Right now, it's changing that control and it's going to stay up there forever. So let's not let it linger. Let's let that stay on screen for a little bit of time and then we'll remove it. So we are going to add, again, another call after for our timer. Simple timer at the end of this to say, you know what? After a certain amount of time, probably the variable amount of time that we've been using, after time, it's my favorite sentence there, after time, do what? We're going to reset the UCI feedback string. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to set it to, well, I'm going to set it to blank. I'm just going to grab a blank string and plug it in there so that no matter what, that just kind of disappears after we have finished doing our relay up and down. That's looking a lot better for me right there. Now we're just going to update each of our event handlers with this function so that, again, you can kind of see we don't want that whole block of stuff in every function. That would kind of start to be a bit of an eyesore. So for all 3 of our button functions, we are going to make this happen as well. So after we disable the button, the up and down buttons for X seconds, we are going to run our function of updating the text and the debug with an activity. I'm going to define this activity as, this one is our stop button, so I'll call it stopping motor. And then up here, when the button down is engaged, we're going to use the activity of shades lowering. Patrick just died. I don't know what happened, but he definitely died. Are you alive? What happened? What are you doing while I'm... Did you let it... Are you a zombie? Are you a zombie now? And then I'm scrolling up to the top, and I'm adding it to our first event handler. And this one is going to be shades rising. And we'll save that. Again, we just plugged one little function in for each of these, and now, make a little space for myself. Now all of them don't need to duplicate any controls. Our functions are all consolidated into single places. We're passing our arguments in. Everything should work great. Let's check it out. Going over to my scripts. I also want to see, I'm gonna get all 3 of these in here. I want to see my debug print as well. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna split my screen 3 ways, if I can. Yes.
Wait.
Oh no.
What is Slim Shady's favorite paper?
What is his favorite paper?
Wrapping paper.
I'm so sorry for all of you. I'm so sorry.
When you said wrapping it up,
I don't know what I can do to make it up to you, but let me know. Let me know. We owe you something. Patrick's dead again. I'm going to lower the shades. I get information that says up and down buttons will be disabled for 2 seconds. It says the shades are lowering. The shades are indeed lowering. Did you see the text input updates? If you didn't, check it again. I hit the up button. It says shades are rising. Both the up and down buttons were disabled while that was happening, exactly the way we wanted it. If I hit the stop button, same thing. It says stopping motor. My buttons were disabled. Down here, it reports back to me, stopping motor. All of this is perfect. That's what we want. We've met the criteria for controlling the motor. We've met all of the expectations of our users to prevent them from getting things wrong. We're getting feedback. We've got dynamic debugging. This is a nice script. We can wrap it up and get out of here.